Hi, welcome to Sober Banter. I'm Colin.
And I'm Rachel.
And today our guest is...
My name is Waylon, and I'm an alcoholic. How about that?
Okay.
I'm Rachel, and I'm an alcoholic.
I'm also an alcoholic named Colin.
Hey!
What was your anonymous joke?
It still hasn't happened organically yet. I wanted to be like, when I'm around old friends and they're like, oh, you don't drink anymore? What are you in AA? And I'd just be like, only anonymously. But I've never been able to say it organically.
Or I'll never tell, right? I'm in a secret club. I usually do that. I'm in a secret club that I can't talk about. And then and that creates so much mystery, actually, for some sober folks that they're like, what is this secret club? You know, and I'm like, I can't tell you. You can only get yourself in there by your own actions. And so
it's a club I never knew I would want to be a part of. My grandma and grandpa both went through AA, and I really thought I'd be the exception. I don't think I had a choice once alcohol went in my body. But
you were a legacy, basically.
The legacy. We were talking about being the creative, and my farthest I went was high school newspaper, and I was freshman. The teacher was like, "This is a dying industry."
Oh my gosh! And you being that in 2012, imagine if you will, 1997, I think it was 1997. And I'm 19. There was a flood in Grand Forks, North Dakota. I'll just set the tone here a little bit. And so Grand Forks, North Dakota, in 1997, April 1997, the entire city of Grand Forks got evacuated. I don't know if y'all are familiar with this, but it's kind of tied to that Red River of the North, right? The Red River that flows up north. You guys are in Texas, right?
Yeah.
I have family in Grapevine, right? Just to give a little
okay, nice. That's not far from us.
Perspective. I know, exactly. That's why I said it, because I'm like, hey, I know.
Yeah.
I know the lay of the land.
Yes,
okay,
right.
for perspective, and we can totally use this. My uncle stays at the WinStar Casino, and then we'll drive down to the track to watch the race there. Or he'll drive from Talaker all the way down to the stadium there, the AT&T Stadium, where those big football guys play. And that guy, Jerry Jones, where he owns that stadium over there, got some oil money and all that good stuff. Ooh, beautiful. Anyway, so that's part of my story, right? That's part of my story here is I'm tied to all that stuff. I'm tied to the oil in North Dakota. There was a flood in North Dakota in 1997 where this angel investor or this angel something or another, Joan Kroc, like the owner of McDonald's, Joan Kroc gifted every resident of Grand Forks, North Dakota, I think it was like $500 or $1,500. I can't remember. Anyways, this was the late 1900s, children. So it was a really different time, right? Newspapers actually really existed still, and the internet had not taken off the way it had taken off. And so Twitter wasn't really Twitter. Facebook wasn't really Facebook. These things had not even really are just being formed at this time. Amazon just moved into Grand Forks at the time in 1997. So they acquired Acme Electric Tool Crib of the North as one of their first acquisitions. And that was a supply chain store. So anyways, why I'm telling you this, why I'm going way back in my memory banks is because newspapers, journalism, all of that stuff has been a part of my life. I was 14 when I got my first byline, so I can relate with you in the high school newspapers thing. And then in 95, when I was graduating from high school, I said, we should start a newspaper here for the high school. And the same ideas or the same BS that your teacher gave you, oh, it's going to cost that. Oh, it's cost. Maybe he was paying out of his pocket, because look at us now, where Department of Education is near destruction. You know, you guys are living in beautiful Texas where, I'll just leave it nicely, kind of tie a nice little bow on the fact that journalism was a big part of my life. And so these podcasts and my voice and being able to share these ideas and these stories, very personal stories, is really what I do. But I don't know how to get paid for that anymore because of my alcoholism and because of my ADHD, which I just got diagnosed with recently, literally, like this week. So this is a big
Oh,
week
This
for
wow.
Waylon.
week?
Yeah,
Yeah.
swear to God. Yeah.
Wow.
I can share the details with you if you'd like, right? So
I
that's
was like,
kind of
how do you feel?
Well, I'll be honest. Well, I didn't. I felt I've been struggling with this for 20 years. How did no one
Yeah.
catch this exactly? How come there was no community support for a guy
Mhm.
who was fumbling and his community, his tribe, right? I'm going to use that too. We can get into that because Seth Godin is one of my favorite authors that I just started to feel like I wanted to vomit after I saw him talking about a tribe, because that's a real thing in American Indian communities. Okay.
Yeah.
And we're small. We're small. We're barely 2 million. In statistics, we don't even register as Black, white, or Asian. We register as something else. We don't get a voice, right? We don't get those voices like y'all do, right? In Texas, we don't get to amplify. And so I have to cling on to folks like yourselves because love is real. Love is powerful. Red and blue. I'm looking at your colors, right? You guys are balanced and I love that.
Oh, wow.
Red and
Wait,
blue
how did that
colors.
happen?
That was not on purpose.
I know. No, it's okay. It's the planets. It's the way. That's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to speak to you on. Is there's bigger things happening in the universe, right? And us individuals who can actually share our wisdom, we can share our knowledge, we can share our experience, strength, and hope with one another to stay sober, right? To tie it back to that sobriety piece, right? Because we are bantering about sobriety, and I think that's a big key.
I didn't seek to get diagnosed with ADHD. It was my last ditch effort of not wanting to give up alcohol. I'm like, I'm obviously mentally ill. The drinking's not the problem. The drugging's not the problem. And I wasn't honest about either. I was
Mhm.
like, I need to see a psychiatrist. It's my
Mhm.
mental health. And it was by seeing a psychiatrist who ended up getting me sober, because he put me on naltrexone, because he told me if I really was drinking, like I said, this wouldn't really affect me. And of course, I'm sitting there really struggling, taking pills, not taking pills. And we
Mhm.
found out I had ADHD. The reason I had asked about the relief is when I heard I'd been struggling with that my whole life, it just felt like it makes sense why I struggled even in writing, because I would start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. I have lots of beginnings. I have millions of beginnings everywhere and some middles.
Yeah.
It's putting
Mhm.
it together I extremely struggle with. But when I feel a little scatterbrained, I at least feel like I'm not broken. This is something I've had my whole life. And now I'm learning, okay, there's actually some tools or things that I can use to deal with it.
It was a lot of ups and downs, and I'll just take you there, right? I'll take you there because literally it was a Zoom call like this. And, and I was supposed to go in, but my ADHD was like, do I go in? I should be there by now. Oh, so I checked in with my therapist. I sent an email and I said, should I be on my way over there? And then she was like, you're okay. Here's the link. You can jump on a Zoom call. And so I'm like, oh, thank God. Oh, so I felt better. Usually that's going to trigger a lot of different stuff that's going to keep me like that. I'm going through Waylon's sheets here. If I have the sheet here and this is Waylon's stuff, this is the analysis, right? This is the evaluation report. I saw so much of my mess, so much of that starts and stops. I actually have a poem called Starts and Stops. So this is kismet. This is supposed to be happening. I'm supposed to be having a conversation with two great individuals from Texas, right? Because I have friends in Deep Ellum, right? I have friends in Panther City. I have friends in Holst. I have people all over this place, right? And some of them I met in a crazy room. They used to be smoke-filled rooms. And so I just kind of want to maybe even take a step back into one of the first times I went to treatment. Because I don't know if any of you went to treatment, but I'm a low bottom drunk.
Take us through that, because our perspective is we never went to rehab or treatment.
I'm a low bottom drunk. You guys are just babies. You guys are just, you
Yeah.
guys aren't even, you guys
I
aren't
was
even
like,
drunk.
I don't think I was low bottom, but you know, my life, I mean, I wanted to take my life. It was, again, I'm mentally ill.
That's normal, right? That's our new normal. Everyone is mentally ill in this country. But that's why we glorify a cannibal. Jeffrey Dahmer, Netflix. It's in front of us all the time. We can't get it out of it. It's and glorification of murder. Oh, we're insane. Even high level, we're pushing for the death penalty in the federal sector of things. Okay, so that's glorified. That's going to be televised. They need ratings. We need ratings. Your sober banter needs ratings. So you can edit that, but I kind of want to just say that little piece right there, right, is true, firm, honest, kind of, yeah. But it's a sickness, and we're all mentally ill. Yeah.
I was gonna say the whole mission of this is share that we recover, share real authentic stories, share we got sober on the same day and we've stayed sober. I don't know how.
Well, and there's also, we
It's
believe
like
there's
magic,
no
but-
one right way to be sober, because we've met a few people or been in a few rooms where they're convinced that there's only one way to do it. I don't believe that. I think everyone's their own individual and finds their own path, but there's more than one ways to get sober. And I want people to know that who are struggling. And that's why we have a lot of guests on it, and you, because I'm interested to hear your story, because everyone is different in how they found their end goal.
But I should
found
have
their
gone to
peace.
treatment. I really do believe that. Like, I had severe
Yeah.
DT and I had a 2-year-old. That was the only reason I probably didn't look at going to treatment. And because I went to AA, I squeezed that desire chip so hard, I swear it imprinted my hand, because I didn't know what else to do. I was like, all they told me, don't drink till the next meeting tomorrow. And I was like, okay. I actually thought if I would have drank, I wouldn't have been allowed back. I thought I had to not drink to be able to go back. And the room felt so, there was something I wanted so badly. But looking back, the amount I was drinking handles. I mean, we were drinking 24/7.
We don't have to
didn't
obsess about that
treatment,
anymore,
but-
right? Isn't that a beautiful thing that we don't have to
Yeah.
obsess about that anymore? Because that's kind of where I start to really think that, yeah, war stories is one thing, and that's not what I would go to the rooms for, right? That's not what I would go to the rooms for. I would go for the experience, the strength, and the hope, and for the template, and that our format where we started off with a prayer, you know, and non-secular and all that stuff can whatever, right? It's getting really weird to the point where if I say I want to pray in my own way, it's going to get scary here pretty soon, because our beliefs are being challenged, right? Our freedoms are being challenged, actually. And so that freedom that I got from this book that was written in the 30s, and for a writer, right? I feel like I'm a writer because all of this just comes pouring out of me. I've been sitting and talking with you beautiful individuals, and everything that we're talking about, all the flow, all of everything that's happening is beautiful, right? And I think that's kind of the power of those rooms, right? And if we think of it this way, like, sure, we didn't open up this with a prayer, and that's okay. We're trying to create a little bit of a message, right? We're trying to carry a message in our own personal ways. And when I saw that y'all wanted to visit with me about my personal journey and how I sobered up, right? That to me felt really good, because I need to share my story, right? There's some real gifts that we can share with one another and the rest of the world. And so I think that's the high point of conversation.
I want to hear about how many times you've done treatment, not treatment, but what was your first time? And with Bill, man, I had to look up so many words. I had a hard time reading it, to be honest. It's kind of old,
Yeah.
scripture like wise, like.
And it's God inspired. There's the impetus behind it. And they try to be a little God of our understanding. And so it gives us our own little possession of how we understand Creator. And for me, it's Creator. there's no way that I woke myself up this morning at the time I woke up this morning with the thought that I woke up this morning with. There's something powerful about something greater than ourselves. And so that's where it all really started to come to fruition for me, because I learned how to read at 2 years old, but it wasn't my first language. Hidatsa was my first language. And so English got thrown in front of me. And so I understood English only because the formulation of language in my mind was actually a non-English language. So I'm able to understand those structures of English. I had a lot of difficulty doing that because it didn't make sense, because my language is a living language. It's not dead like English is, right? And so verb, subject, participle, but it just makes me so
I know.
grossed out, right? Because it's colonization at a very high level, right? It's a psychological operation to make us feel like we need to be rugged individuals, like you'd said. And so when I try to talk about high bottom drunks, you know, and how even with our inferiority, superiority complexes, we're egotists. Alcoholics are egotistical people. We're selfish, self-seeking, self-serving. We want it all for ourselves, right? Until we realize, oh shit, we're not the only people in the world like this. There's a whole group of people that act like us, and we're all in the same room now.
Yeah.
So at first I started taking other people's inventory because I'm grandiose. I'm a fucking alcoholic, you guys. I am an alcoholic. I learned to identify myself in the rooms as an alcoholic named Waylon. I'm an alcoholic named Waylon because that is who I am. First, I'm an alcoholic. Then I'm Waylon, because the two cannot exist apart from one another.
Right.
It's that ego, right? It's ego-driven egocentrism and then flattening of the ego, right? And then having it based on Christian ideals, the Orthodox group, going into the history.
Yeah, that's Thatcher who carried the message to Bill. And that's what Bill and Bob didn't like. They can't do the whole church part of it, but they did see that change in Ebby. And so that's where you have the birth of AA.
And for a long time, because like yourself, Rachel, you didn't want to be an alcoholic. You wanted to justify the fuck out of not being an alcoholic, because I'm normal. I can drink. It's not the drink. It's got to be something else.
I would brag like, I'm an alcoholic. I'll drink you under the table, but I wasn't saying it in the way that the first time I said it with tears down my face.
The point of pride,
the surrender part.
I felt relieved though too, because when I walked in the rooms that first day, there was hope. And I had one lady tell me the most like profound thing. And she said, no, you don't have to drink again. Like you have permission to not take another drink. And at that point, I didn't have a choice. I had to drink. And so when I heard that I had that power back, and she's like, you hang on to this little chip, you keep coming back. And that's what I did. And but yeah, I used to brag like, yeah, of course I'm alcoholic. I can drink you under the table. I come from a long line of alcoholism. And
yeah. Well, see, yeah, that's my pedigree. I was trying to qualify myself into the room.
Qualify,
right?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Not realizing, wait a minute. I'm in denial about this, right? And I have a whole group of people that is trying to convince me about something that I'm in denial about. But then it has to be that self-realization, right? And then we crack open, right? That busting open of realization of, oh my God. And then looking at ourselves. And that's just that's like step one, because we haven't even got to the look at ourselves, the true look at ourselves. Step 4, step 5, telling somebody else. Yeah, fucking is. That's hard. Nobody wants to do that. Who wants to do that? Who wants to take a close self-examination at yourself, right? Who wants to inventory themselves? Nobody. I don't think anybody does.
No, but it was hard. And I had to go multiple times of writing my 4th step, keeping it continuous. But my sponsor told me you get to be as honest and as free as you want to be. So you can be as honest, you can hold back as much as you want to hold back, but you get to be as free as you want to be. Like, and I want to be free. So I want to go as deep as I can. And now I'm trying to get my A on there.
Because we're egotists.
Man, might have. Exactly. Yes. But I wanted to be free. And she's like, you're as sick as your secrets. And I remember even 1 hour after when I'm, told to go reflect and think, and I'm, oh my God, I forgot. And she's like, hey, listen, if things pop up, she's like, as long as you didn't hold something back on purpose, like you were like, I'm not going to share this one thing from my 4th step. She's like, things are going to pop back up. It's being intentional when you're trying to do your inventory, because what we learn, you don't graduate. It's a continuous inventory.
Yeah, 10, 11, 12.
There's every single day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We got to keeping ourselves in check like that is something that I had a really difficult time doing, because in going back to the evaluation report, right? The evaluation report says that Waylon has problems with executive function, so I can't carry out processes and tasks because there's a block, right? That block happens to me, and then once that block starts happening, then I start getting hyper. And then I start getting the disease, the uneasiness takes over, and then it makes me impulsive. And then once my impulsive behavior gets triggered, it's too fucking late by then. And so relapse was something that I was obsessed with, I think, at some point, because the starts and stops, the frequent starts and stops, oh, I'm sober, I got this now. And then I can drink again real quick. And then I'm going to sneak it. Because I told everybody I'd quit drinking. So I'm going to have to sneak this one. I'm going to have to go somewhere. I have to take off somewhere and go hide. A month later, where's Waylon at? Right? Waking up to knocks on the hotel room door. Waking up to a shit ton of cans in front of me because I drink a lot of beer because I couldn't drink whiskey. But I could eventually, right? Eventually we graduate, right? Graduate up. I'm kind of giving you like the Rapid City, like Indian drunk, right? Because I was hanging around a bunch of Native Americans, Lakota people, my heritage, right? My heritage. It's a heritage. And we are Americans. We're indigenous to the Americas. Just want to say that much because we're you guys are based in Texas. And philosophy, right? We go back to the Oxford group a little bit, and here's my ADHD jumping in. Going back to the Oxford group and the Christian ideals, right? And then Ebby, and I can't remember if it was Bill or Bob, who were, I don't know about that God stuff,
Bob got sent by his wife to Oxford, and Bill went because of Ebby, and they both kind of split off and had coffee, and they were like, I don't know about all this.
That's what I mean. That's what I meant.
Yeah. So it's actually, both Bill and Bob. And then Ebby was the third.
Who it was, though. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because Ebby comes back, and then they have.
But Ebby couldn't stay sober. He relapsed. You talk about resentments. Ebby had a resentment that he was not part of the creation of the big book because he carried the message to Bill, but he was never considered creator. That's speculation. I'm not saying I know that for sure, but if you look at...
Well, maybe he was Indian, And Indians, and how do Indians react to this? Perspective, okay? Not in Iwo Jima, when they raised the flag at Iwo Jima. Are you guys familiar with the person, individual, a soldier, a United States Marine by the name of Ira Hayes?
I was like, I'm terrible with history.
And that's the problem with America, is that they're afraid of their history. And so,
I'm not afraid. I'm just bad at it.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's okay. It's called guilt. It's called internalized oppression. All right. Let's swallow that right now, because we're trying to stay sober through all of this. And we're trying to stay alive, honestly. Genocide. A culture killed. America, the beautiful. We're all Americans now. We don't want to think about our history because it's hurtful. It's harmful. Oh, big fucking deal. Guess what? We've had to be here. My grandmother, her name is Annie Wick, born Smith. But her real name is Hawkwoman. Her dad's name was Chester. I don't know what Chester's Indian name was, but his dad's Indian name was Longtail, means mountain lion. So these are our beliefs that we hold self-evident. These are truths to me, right? So I want to get weird on you guys a little bit because we were talking about beliefs and then you got shameful with that love shirt on. You got shameful of your history because you're an American here. You're a Jewish American now. And I hope you're not a Zionist because Zionism is kind of a sick thought, right? And it kind of ties into that whole issue where there was a Holocaust. I'm not a Holocaust denier, but I am a genocide survivor. So that's our tie right there. Judeo-Christianism, Judeo-Christianity today now. Christian nationalism, right? Greg Abbott tries to be a disability guy now too, right? I don't know, there's something where he was standing and then now he's in a wheelchair. And so I'm like, I have a disability now. I just discovered a disability in myself, right? I don't know about you, but when I drank, I'd blink out. Okay. And I'd do some shit that I did not remember. And then I'd wake up the next day and people would be telling me, holy fuck, bro, did you know what you did? You jumped out of a window. Holy fuck, bro, did you know what you did? You climbed on top of the roof of the car and you scared the fuck out of us. Holy shit, bro. Story after story after story of that. And that's not normal behavior, right? And it's risky. And some people might even call it borderline. You were talking about your psychological stuff. When I was 18, I'm an Indian kid in North Dakota. And North Dakota can be summed up as the Mississippi of the North. And us brown people there, they couldn't lynch us, but they could throw us in jails. Okay, so that system of oppression, loud and clear. And I'm indigenous. This is my land y'all are on, North Dakotans. We predate that North Dakota 1889 century code bullshit. 1851, Treaty of 1851 was how our lands were established. Okay, Fort Berthold Indian Reservation is where I grew up. Mandaree, North Dakota, to be very specific. My auntie and uncle moved to Fort Worth, Texas because of a policy called relocation, United States policy. It was the policy of the federal government to send Indians to different cities so they could assimilate. The survivors of a genocide had government funding to continue their life, but they had to be Americans in order to continue it, which is fine. We're moving towards that direction again now, where we all have to erase our identities and we have to just become Americans, which is fine. I can play that mask. I can play that role. I identify with all kinds of Americans in this country. Jews, non-Jews, indigenous, non-indigenous, right? And I try not to offend. But I'm Gen X. And we have a different role in society today, us Gen Xers. We have to bridge generations, okay? Because those boomers don't know shit. And all those young kids, millennials, I think they call them, they know everything. Holy smokes, they know everything. They know so much that they're going to save the world. And they're going to tell us guys to shut up. So I want to get out of the way and let those kids take over, because that's what a bridge does. I just serve as a conduit between generations, okay? Because I can remember looking at a calendar and it said 1982 on it. That's how good my memory used to be. But then alcohol got introduced to my system when I was about 10 or 11, maybe 11 or 12 actually. Maybe earlier than that even, right? Because I was bouncing off the walls and they did not know what to do with Waylon at that time. And I was a little kid, toddler in diapers sometimes. Some of my uncles would put alcohol in a cap and give it to me and see what would happen to me.
Hey, so our quick kind of backstory is that when I say We went to that same meeting that night. We haven't had a drink since that same night. He wasn't so AA. He wanted to be like, well, I don't quite know.
That's a dyslexic for you.
But
Like, there's a lot of reading already.
He's gonna
12? Really?
Where's the audiobook?
That's a
Do we
lot.
have the audiobook?
We can't make it single digits. We got to go double digits.
And thankfully, I had a great sponsor that said, his step work is none of your business. You have your sobriety is your business, but he's my husband. We live together. She goes, it does not matter. What saved our marriage is like when we talk about the steps and now I can learn through this, hey, this is what makes me mad. This is how I react. I'm in charge of my reactions. Okay. Like, I don't get to say, when you do the dishes that way, you make me angry. No, you do the dishes how you do the dishes. I get angry because of something that's in my problem. And when we were able to break that down, when things happening around the house or in our lives, like, hey, we can stop. Can we do a quick inventory check? Here's the problem. It's not your fault. I'm telling you my inventory, how I feel. What can we do to try and get rid of that resentment? And how did this book that Bill and Bob created has saved my marriage?
Oh my God. Yeah.
No?
Yes. There's so many things that were hitting with me as you were speaking, because my first real sponsor, and I say my first real sponsor because he's actually the one who really had enough patience to actually wait, pause, and then tell me how to go through it. And he had no knowledge of ADHD. I had no knowledge that I had ADHD at the time, but he had enough patience and love and tolerance. Oh my God. But it was so funny because at times when his patience and tolerance got tested, he sent me to priests. He sent me to a Catholic priest. He sent me to a Russian Orthodox priest. Yeah. And the Russian Orthodox priest was the one who actually reached me at some point, because I was stuck in my identity, and I was stuck in, it's you guys' fault that I'm fucking even alcoholic, because you guys fed us to alcohol. You guys had this whole fucking bullshit thing where wine is sacred now. Ugh. Ugh. It's a belief system. We didn't have any wine or anything fermented that was sacred to us. We have herbs. We have a plant that fucks some people up. We won't get into that. But ergo fungus, right, is something that is a part of the burning bush incident that everybody leaves out, because Bill was hanging out with like Ken Kesey people, dude. And Ken Kesey was a merry fucking prankster and used LSD to free his mind. Nobody wants to hear about that, though. We always have to talk about Abby. We always have to talk about Orthodox and blah, 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 and all that bullshit.
I try to give Bill grace on some of the after parts.
I don't, because it was ego. It was ego.
I mean, he asked for a drink on his deathbed. I know.
It's 80 years ago. Here we are now, still talking about these fuckers. Why? Because we're just trying to stay sober, right? We're trying to stay sober, and they were God-given or something like that, right? Just like the framers of our Constitution. So anyways, decolonization was something where I got stuck, right? And it took a Russian Orthodox priest in his collar to say, Waylon, I'm an alcoholic too. Literally, that's how he said it. I'm an alcoholic too. And he pointed to his collar. Waylon, I'm an alcoholic. Father, I'm an Indian. Black robes, missionaries, colonization, Catholicism, belief systems, imposition, right? But I'm just an alcoholic named Waylon. I got to let go of all of that weighs me down to stay sober. Otherwise, all that weighs me down turns into another drink. And, and I never knew how to turn this into a lead, right? Because I never understood opening up, beginning, middle, end. Because I always opened up, I started, and I stopped. I started and I stopped. I never had an in-between middle ground where I could breathe, where I could feel that love, where I could stretch like I'm in a yoga class, right? And feel the beauty of all the beauty around us that's everywhere around us. And I feel warmth in one hand and I feel cool in the other right now as I'm speaking to you both, right? And so that wisdom, that knowledge, that love, that energy, that God moment, it's about all I have to say about that right there, right? And that beauty and that wisdom is way inside of me. And that's creator as I understand them. I don't need a book to tell me I'm better than other people. So it's kind of neat. It's kind of beautiful. But it's my experience, my strength, my hope. I got to experience treatment as a senior in high school. I was 16 years old when I went to treatment my first time. It was September 1994. And I went in and I told my high school principal that I didn't feel like I wanted to be here anymore. And she said, we have somewhere we can take you. They're going to help you. Do you want to go? Yeah, let's go. I need the help. I ended up in a psych ward for 72 hours. And the psych ward said, you're not suicidal. We're pretty sure you're an alcoholic. So we're going to put you in treatment for 28 days. And this was September 1994. I think I got out around October, November 1994. And over half of our high school class, this was the first time I got sober, right? The half of our high school class all of us ended up going to treatment. This was on a reservation. It was a mixed community, so it was half white, half Indian. And some of us were half white, half Indian. So it's a mixed community, right? So there was love there in that community. A lot of love. Secret love sometimes too. So anyway, it's a small community, right? It's a rural area. So I won't get into that.
Yeah, in a small community like that, and kind of hear about smaller towns, people just drink earlier because there's nothing really
There's
else
nothing
to
to
do.
do.
Or yeah,
And that's bullshit. That's lack of imagination. That's lack of
Mhm.
imagination. That's lack of creativity, right? And
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't gifted and talented, for fuck's sake. So I'm embarrassed by that. But I'm also like, those are the tools. Those are the only tools we had. Scott, when
Mhm.
you were dyslexic in school, did you have to go to class? Did you tell anybody that you had a little bit of an issue?
Oh,
Think they saw the letters backwards, the numbers back.
it was
He got
very
sent
early. Yeah.
to yes, and now he works for that hospital that helped him, and so it's
Oh,
kind
wow.
of serendipitous.
Full circle. Yeah. So I work
Aw.
for a hospital that does
It's for children.
Yeah, a children's hospital in Dallas that does a lot of great work, and it's all run on donations and charity. So the people that go there don't have to pay for anything if they can't afford it.
And it's more like prosthetics or dyslexia or like
Yeah,
kids
scoliosis,
yeah.
club feet.
very
Very specific.
So they coined the term dyslexia and helped pioneer the tutoring for it.
the Shriners.
Yeah.
Chem Temple is the temple that put on our Shrine Circus in North Dakota.
Oh,
Okay.
So that's the connection we have to the Shriners there.
Yeah.
Which is
I mean,
different,
yeah.
which is a little bit of a disconnect, but
Yeah.
I'm also like, but they make money. I mean, they raise funds that way.
Yeah.
In the
Interesting crowd of gentlemen, but they raise a lot of money.
And it was always those dudes in the derbies and the little tassels.
Yeah.
The hat.
The hats.
And I'm like, what the fuck is that? What is that? You know, I was a kid curious saying, what is that? And then I'm an adult taking my kids to this circus. And then I started having that PETA moment where I'm like, oh, this is animal abuse, actually. How can they justify this? Oh, yeah, that's right. Abuse is a way of life for them. So that's how they justify it. And so that's why I'm like, oh, shit, this is a really big disconnect. Because we lived with the earth. We didn't want to control it. We don't want to be in charge of it. We lived with it in harmony, and we appreciated it. And we knew that we had enough land that there was going to be an abundance for everybody, right? I believe it was the Onondagas, and I might butcher that. We have to go back to, I think it's the 5-Nation Confederacy, 6-Nation Confederacy, one of those confederacies, of which are the framers of the Constitution used to make the Constitution. But the philosophy was one dish, one spoon. There's enough for everybody. There's enough for everybody. One dish, one spoon. Not the cow jumped over the moon. A real fucking story. A real oral history. Okay? Not written down like the Talmud or the Torah or the Quran or the Bible. Oral history. And there were whole people who were entire records. Not just books, people with wisdom and knowledge and experience. And if we can kind of keep just the remnants of that, right? Just those little tiny specks of that beautiful history. And we can reach each other with this story, right? We can reach one another with these stories, our experience, our strength, our hope. By golly, we just might be onto something, right? Because we were able to sit, and I was able to focus, and I thank you folks for that, right? For this past hour, I've been able to sit and focus on a topic, a single topic of sobriety, but I went all over to a bunch of different areas, right? Jumped all over the place because it's inclusive, right? Sobriety is inclusive. Just like the rest of us have to be inclusive, right? But that inclusion can be changed a little bit. We can change those words, right? We're word mongers. We have thesauruses. We can change the verbiage a little bit to match the policies that are in place in motion right now. We can reclaim our identities too in that framework. So Hiradza heritage is something I've really been pushing for and championing. There was a couple questions you had on your intake form that made me wonder about what do I want to plug shamelessly? And it's Hiradza heritage. Because the Heritage Foundation wants to solidify American heritage. And I'm going to weave in the fabric of my culture, my heritage, with 2 people in Texas this morning. In a good way, because Creator gave that thought to me. Thank you.
And we're going to put that link in the show notes.
Well, here's the deal. Heritage Foundation is kind of dark. Their philosophy is anti everybody, except for conservatives. That's the difference between those 12 world concepts, AA, the foundations of AA, Tradition 7. I would like to donate to that because that's the only way I see worlds working anymore is on donations. Because we can't make money. Oh, but then the fat cat corporations can, right? Which is fine. I understand LLCs. We won't get into that. But I'm just trying to figure out here, seriously, how to help motherfuckers anymore, like us marginalized people, right? I don't have as much as I should because I was blocked by ADHD for the last 20 years. Okay, I kind of started this conversation with, I was a journalist before my ADHD and my alcoholism kicked in. And that held me down for 20 years. So now here I am kind of fumbling because I've been struggling with a disability for 20 years that has not allowed me to stay employed. So how does a donation-based service or donation-based whatever the hell it is, how does that function? And I'll take LA Russell as an example, right? Because LA Russell does music. I'll drop LA Russell because, and I don't know if it's La Russell, but I mean, I think they're doing great work. They're doing backyard stuff. And it's really helpful. But he has this page and a following on Instagram, but he also has a bunch of donation links to his Cash App. And I'm like, how does that work for them? How do they funnel that into, like, I got to pay the rent this month, right? And so I'm just trying to figure out what your mutual aid links would be so then I could help you, right? And then in the process, maybe down the road, let's say I'm working for a nonprofit called Harvest of All First Nations. Maybe we can say donate to Harvest of All First Nations.
Yeah, we're still figuring that out on our end. And I have to keep refocusing that we've grown bigger of talking to all these great people. And I'm like, oh my God, let's talk on the podcast. But it started off just him and I, very casual. And right now, my only goal is to get a job to where I can do this without asking people for a Venmo or Cash App or whatever, or a subscription. God, that kills me.
And don't get me wrong. Listen, I'm a journalist, right? I stopped doing journalism because they couldn't fucking pay me what I needed to live. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know, because
like I was in South Dakota getting paid $13 a fucking hour for my brain work. And that was it. That was the best I could do. So when I started seeing like jobs for menial tasks getting way more than that, I'm like, my fucking mind isn't even valued here. Nobody's mind is valued unless you have $1 million in the bank to begin with.
Yeah.
And that's
so you're already starting off short.
Yeah. So that's a poverty mindset right there. And so I can help you shift out of that, literally, but it takes a lot. It takes a commitment of going to North Dakota in the summertime. I'm talking about spirituality.
No,
yeah, Sundance, you know. I do have nonprofits that I work with. Medicine Butte is one of them. Medicine Butte nonprofit up in North Dakota. They're based in Newtown, PO Box 90. They're trying to do some stuff. I did mention Harvest of All First Nations. I am working with them, trying to grow food here in Boulder County, Colorado. Okay, so I'm a media guy, right? I am a creative. And that's what I gave to you guys today. I gave you my creativity for an hour. I'm not going to ask for anything for that, but I am going to ask that if we can build together, right, from this point on.
And I know we've taken a lot of your time, and I appreciate it.
It was great having you.
One last thing. What are your sobriety dates?
Same one, 11/22/21.
Nice. Nice.
So a little over 3 years and a few months.
And I have 6 hours on them.
Yeah.
I got a
Beat
year
me by 6 hours.
I got a year on this last one. 10/24/2020. The day I woke up.
That's impressive because that's like 6 months into COVID, and that was probably our heaviest time drinking, is because the world was shut down. Alcohol could get delivered to your front door, and it was a nightmare. Again, we can say like that high bottom, but if you looked in our house and the way we took care of ourselves, and alcohol was our master at that point.
Yeah.
And it was scary when we got sober, because it's, how did we justify this? And how did we justify having negative amounts in our bank account and selling off like coins from our family to go buy a handle of Jameson? But in the time, it made perfect sense.
Yeah. In the moment.
Because you don't want to get the cheap shit for sure.
Yeah. No. And again, it's like the baffling. I don't understand how I rationalized it. And
it's like we barely use that couch anyways. Let's sell it
we
on
don't need a couch.
Marketplace.
You know what? I'm more.
We have 2 couches. What do we need to do
them? We're gonna sit on the floor, and
we can do yoga. And we can get yoga.
Exactly.
And justify the. Yeah. No. Hey, I mean, we could do a whole other discussion on that.
No, I
But-
mean, I just the feeling too. It's that emptiness, and now my heart is not empty. Just definitely a lot more full today. We thank you for your time.
Thank-
Really appreciate it.
Have a great rest of your weekend.